Don't move! Get behind me. This is an unacceptable. I will not tolerate this.
Minjun, behind the pillar at 2 o'clock. The sniper's muzzle was reflected in the broken glass. Now!
Clever.
Sorry, boss. I think I just saved your life. New York in the rain. It was the kind of night when the streetlights along the Hudson River, lining the southern tip of Manhattan, bled into the wet pavement like ink. A black SUV cut hard around a corner and stopped at the mouth of an alley. The passenger door swung open, and someone was shoved roughly inside. Aisha Williams, 29, former FBI interpreter, current occupation blank. In her right hand, a broken umbrella handle. Beneath her left cheekbone, a pale scrape, raw and fresh. The man inside the car didn't look at her. He stared out the window and tapped his knee twice with 2 fingers. Keep your mouth shut if you want to live. Aisha pushed her wet hair off her face with the back of her hand. Then she slowly took him in one side at a time. A cold jawline, cedarwood. The watch on his wrist was the kind of thing no quarterback's salary could touch. Sorry, boss. I think I just saved your life. For the first time, the man turned his head. Kang Minjun, 36, head of the East Coast Korean family. 3 consecutive years at the top of the NYPD's Persons of Interest list. Never once indicted. The way he looked at Aisha wasn't appraisal, and it wasn't wariness. It was calculation pure and simple. Saved my life. 2 of your guys cornered me at the alley entrance with guns in my face. I screamed. That blew the sniper's position. Your car pulled out after that. Minjun said nothing. The way I figure it, you made it through tonight because of me. So killing me right now would be kind of a waste, wouldn't it? The car went quiet. Only the rain kept tapping the roof. The guy in the back seat reached for his gun. Minjun raised one hand and stopped him a single flick of his wrist, and the gun disappeared. Name, Aisha. Job. Former FBI. Currently unemployed. The corner of Minjun's mouth moved up, then back down. So fast you'd miss it if you blinked. In that car, only Aisha caught it. The car cut across Midtown Manhattan and headed north. Aisha watched the city move past the window. The streetlights in the rain drifted and wavered like paper lanterns floating on a river. Where are we going? Nobody knows I got in this car. But her hands stayed still. A line from her old supervisor at the bureau came back to her. Williams, swallow your fear before it shows. Aisha breathed in 3 times quietly. Then she turned toward Minjun. Where are you taking me? Somewhere safe. Safe for me or safe for you? Because those aren't the same thing. Minjun didn't answer. That was his answer. As the car descended into an underground garage, Aisha checked her own reflection in the elevator mirror panel. The scrape, the wet hair. But her eyes didn't waver. Okay, first priority, stay alive. When the penthouse door opened, Aisha's feet stopped on their own. New York's skyline was pouring through floor-to-ceiling glass. The skyscrapers glittering in the rain spread out like the inside of a massive jewelry box. But there was no time to take in the view. People were stationed throughout the space, quiet, solid, the kind who didn't make eye contact. One of them stepped in front of Aisha and stopped. Tall, broad-shouldered, no name tag, just an earpiece in his left ear. I need to search you. Get a female officer, otherwise pass. Jaehyuk looked at Minjun. Minjun tilted his chin in a direction. A moment later, a woman with a short bob appeared. Her expression was as blank as wallpaper. Her hands were professional. Aisha's belongings were laid out on the table. A wallet, earbuds, 1 crumpled business card, 1 lipstick. This everything? I travel light. Minjun picked up the business card. He checked the back. Nothing written. But he didn't put it down. He slid it into the inside pocket of his jacket. Aisha didn't miss that move. He knows something. The room Aisha was given sat at the east end of the penthouse. Wide, quiet. No lock on the window. Instead, there was someone on the other side of the door. She didn't sit on the bed. She made one slow loop of the room. Walls. Outlets. The ventilation shaft. Emergency exit direction. She remembered something her training officer used to say back in her first year at the bureau. First thing you do when you enter an unfamiliar space, count the ways out. Aisha found 3. Only then did she move to the window. Rain ran down the glass in crooked lines. Below, the city lights trembled. Why did he pull me out of that alley? He could have just driven past. Then a sound came from the other side of the door. Low, unhurried. Sleep if you can. There's food in the kitchen if you can't. Footsteps moved away. Aisha stood where she was for a moment. Then she laughed a small private laugh. A mob boss just offered me a midnight snack. Only in New York. The next morning, the penthouse smelled like coffee. Aisha hadn't slept. She'd spent the night staring at the ceiling, piecing things together. Why she'd been chased through that alley. The faces she'd clocked just before getting into Minjun's car. And the broken umbrella handle. The kitchen was empty. But next to the coffee maker, there was a mug, already set out. Beside it, a small notepad. 2 words. Eat something. 3 commands so far. Shut up. Eat. Sleep. Is that seriously the full range of this guy's vocabulary? She poured the coffee, took a sip, narrowed her eyes. It was good. She didn't want to admit it, but it was really good. At 10 in the morning, a meeting was held in Minjun's office. Aisha was summoned. Minjun sat at the head of a long table, his people lined up on either side. Jaehyuk stood to his right, going through documents. Tell me everything you saw in that alley last night. What do I get in return? The room went still. A few of the men exchanged glances. You're trying to negotiate right now? Information has value. That's one thing the FBI actually taught me. Minjun rested one hand flat on the table. Didn't tap it. Didn't move it. Just set it there. The moment his hand touched the table, the others quietly straightened in their seats. Aisha read that from the corner of her eye. Terms. My safety. I walk out of here alive when this is over. And one piece of information on a person I've been looking for. Minjun's eyes narrowed, just barely, then relaxed. Name. Rachel Park. The air in the room shifted. Not changed, hardened. The meeting ended and the others filed out. Only Minjun, Aisha, and Jaehyuk remained. How do you know Rachel Park? Your side goes first, then mine. Jaehyuk looked at Minjun. Minjun gave a single nod. Rachel Park, a Korean female boss who aligned with the East Coast Russian family. For 3 years, she's been eating into our territory. Last night's sniper odds are high. That was her call. Not odds. It was her. Jaehyuk's eyebrows went up. The 2 men who chased me through that alley, the one on the right, had a tattoo behind his ear. A snake coiled around a key. That's Rachel Park's crew mark. Jaehyuk looked back at Minjun. Minjun was already looking at Aisha. How do you know that? I was assigned to a Rachel Park investigation when I was at the bureau. I saw it in the files. Minjun leaned back in his chair. Cedarwood drifted faintly through the air. Why did you leave the FBI? That question not yet. That wasn't part of my terms, boss. By afternoon, a new face had walked into the penthouse. Sharp eyes, sharp jacket. The kind of woman whose walk claimed the room before she'd even crossed it. Minjun's people all snapped a little straighter. But she stopped the second she spotted Aisha. What is this, Appa? Are we running a shelter now? She's the org's legal counsel. File that. Jisu. Kang Jisu. Minjun's cousin and the family's in-house attorney. She looked Aisha up and down and clicked her tongue. Former FBI? Seriously, Appa? Useful, she stays. Otherwise, she goes. Goes how? On her own 2 feet? Or, Jisu. Jisu, shut up. Aisha looked between the 2 of them. This man just changed the temperature of the room with 1 word. Jisu dropped her briefcase on the table with a thud and pulled a chair next to Aisha. Then she leaned in, voice barely above a whisper. If you want to survive here, you need to get on my good side. You know who the most dangerous person in this place is? Not him. Me. Aisha pressed her lips together to keep from smiling. Toward evening, Aisha wandered through the penthouse. Whether she'd been given permission to roam or just no one was stopping her, that part was unclear. Then she spotted a man at the far end of the hallway by the window. Jaehyuk. He'd pulled his earpiece out and was on a phone call. Aisha stopped. She went still and sharpened her ears. Jaehyuk's voice was low, fast. She only caught a few words. Tomorrow night. North Warehouse. Confirmed. That was it. Jaehyuk turned, and Aisha was already 3 steps back, spine against the wall, staring at the ceiling, like she hadn't heard a thing. North Warehouse. Tomorrow night. Who was he reporting to? At the bureau, she'd done training on how to spot an inside man. Her instructor's words came back. The traitor is always the one closest to you? Aisha's eyes drifted down the hallway toward the door to Minjun's office. Late that night, Aisha knocked on Minjun's office door. Once. Twice. No answer. But the light was on. I'm coming in. Minjun was standing at the window. All of New York's night was spread out behind him. I need to say something. Sit down. I'm fine standing. This won't take long. She didn't say anything about Jaehyuk. No proof yet. And there was one thing the Bureau had drilled into her. Suspicion without evidence gets people killed. Double your perimeter tonight. Don't ask me why. Minjun turned slowly. On what basis? My gut? You want me to move my organization based on a gut feeling. Wasn't it a gut feeling that made you bring me into this penthouse? Minjun looked at Aisha. Long. Quiet. Instead of answering, he walked to his desk and picked up the intercom. Jaehyuk. Double all perimeter posts for tomorrow night. Aisha watched him do it. She pressed her lips together. Is he trusting me or testing me? Her footsteps on the way out were a little faster than on the way in. In the early hours of the next morning, word came in from the North Warehouse. 8 of Rachel Park's crew had tried to encircle the warehouse and walked straight into Minjun's doubled perimeter. Jaehyuk stood in front of Minjun. His face was tight. How did you know, sir? I didn't. Minjun looked toward the hallway. Aisha was coming out of the kitchen with coffee, and their eyes met. Something shifted in Jaehyuk's expression. The look of a man doing math. I'll take that woman down myself. The hallway went quiet. Jaehyuk's eyebrows climbed. In the kitchen doorway, Jisu froze with her mug in hand. Only Minjun kept looking at Aisha, without a word. That silence was permission. That afternoon, a low current of tension moved through the penthouse. The reason was simple. Rachel Park had called. On Minjun's private line. No encryption. In broad daylight. Put it on speaker. The speaker clicked on. The air in the room turned heavy as lead. Long time, Minjun. I'll let the warehouse thing slide just this once. Is that all you wanted to say? Not quite. I hear you've got someone interesting on your team these days. An ex-FBI girl. Tell her for me, what you don't know can't hurt you. The line went dead. Every eye in the room turned to Aisha. She set her coffee cup on the table. She knows me. You knew that already. I suspected it. Now I'm sure. Minjun looked at Aisha. For the first time, his gaze carried something heavier than a question. By evening, Minjun called Aisha into his office. Just the two of them. Why were you pulled off the Rachel Park investigation? Aisha glanced out the window for a moment. The sunset was bleeding red between the buildings. There was a mole inside the task force. I reported it. The next day, I had fabricated misconduct charges on my record. The FBI let me go. Proof. I have it. Just not anywhere you can touch it. It's all in my head. Minjun crossed his arms, studied her like that for a long moment. So you came back to New York to bring down Rachel. I came back to get my name back, she answered fast. Not like a rehearsed line, more like something she'd said to herself, alone, 100 times. Minjun said nothing. But this time, the silence didn't feel like calculation. It felt something closer to understanding. Why am I telling this man any of this? It was past 10 at night. The north-facing window of the penthouse exploded inward. The wind hit before the sound did. Aisha dropped flat on instinct. Glass fragments sliced the air above her head. Chaos. Shouting. Footsteps. Somewhere smoke was rising. Aisha lifted her head. She spotted Minjun, but he was moving in the wrong direction. Away from the exits. That way is a dead end. There's no way out over there. She got up. Ran, crunching through the glass. Her soles tore. She didn't stop. She saw a shadow moving behind Minjun. Aisha didn't shout. She grabbed the metal bookend off a side table and threw it at the shadow. A dull crack. The shadow went down. Minjun turned around. By the time the smoke cleared, it was over. 4 attackers, all neutralized. 2 of Minjun's men had taken injuries. Aisha had a deep gash on her right forearm. Jisu came out with a first aid kit and dropped to her knees in front of Aisha, pulling out antiseptic. Yell if it hurts. If you hold it in, your hand will cramp up. I'm fine. People who are fine don't bite through their own lips like that. Aisha let go of her lip. Jisu pressed the antiseptic to the wound. It burned. Aisha didn't make a sound. Minjun sat in a chair across from them, watching. His tie was undone. His jacket sleeve had glass dust on it. His eyes didn't leave Aisha's arm. Why didn't you call out? What? When they came at you from behind. If you'd shouted, my men would have gotten there first. They would have been too slow. I was faster. Minjun was quiet for a moment. Then, very quietly, you were never bait. I had that wrong. Jisu's hands stopped moving. Aisha looked up. No one in that room knew how long Minjun had been holding those words inside him before letting them go. After midnight, the penthouse settled back into quiet. The crew rotated their watch. Jisu had fallen asleep on the couch mid-document review, her jacket sliding off one shoulder. Aisha sat by the window, looking at the bandage on her arm. Minjun approached. He was carrying 2 cups of coffee. He set one in front of her and took the seat across. Nothing was said. They just looked out the same window. New York at 4 in the morning. A city that never turns its lights off. Why would Rachel know who I am? She said it like she was thinking out loud. She wasn't really expecting an answer. Because you're the only person who's ever actually seen inside her operation. So I'm a liability. You were from the beginning. Aisha lifted her coffee, took a sip. I know. I've always known. But here was the strange part: she wasn't afraid.
Now, isn't that something? The moment the one being protected turns around and protects the one doing the protecting, the weight between 2 people shifts for good. Aisha was pushed into this world against her will. But when the moment came, she never lost sight of who she was. It's not the strongest who survive, folks. It's those who know themselves. And this story is already showing us that, isn't it?
The morning after the attack, a strange new current moved through the penthouse. Nothing had actually changed, same number of guards, same routines. But the way the crew looked at Aisha was different. The woman who grabbed the metal bookend. The woman who kept her boss alive without making a single sound. When they made eye contact with Aisha now, they gave a small nod first. No words. But that nod said more than words could. So this is what it feels like to be respected. Without a badge. Jisu slid her chair over to Aisha mid-breakfast, close enough to bump shoulders. Did you see Appa's face last night? I've never seen him look like that in my life. What face? Caught off guard. He was actually caught off guard. By a person. Aisha took a bite of her toast. Instead of an answer, but the tips of her ears had gone slightly warm. Mid-morning, Jaehyuk brought a report to Minjun. One of last night's attackers started talking. Says Rachel has her next move ready. What is it? She's asking for a direct negotiation. Neutral ground. But there's a condition. Jaehyuk paused. She wants Aisha Williams brought to the table. The office went quiet. Minjun looked out the window. One hand settled on the desk. Not tapping. Just resting there. Declined. Boss, the cards Rachel's holding aren't nothing. Even just sitting down at the table. Aisha is not a bargaining chip. Jaehyuk closed his mouth. There was someone in the hallway who heard those words. Aisha. She was leaning against the wall, eyes closed. Not a bargaining chip. Something in her chest shifted, quietly. But Rachel Park was not a patient woman. 2 in the afternoon. Aisha was stepping into Jisu's car in the penthouse's underground garage. 2 black vans sealed the exit. Fast. Silent. Jisu was reaching into her bag when the back door opened. 3 of Rachel's men. Aisha didn't fight. She looked at Jisu, said it with her eyes. Tell Minjun. Jisu's eyes went wide. But Aisha was already being walked into the van. The door shut. The van pulled out. Jisu was left alone in the underground garage. She pulled out her phone, muttering under her breath, "I'm the one who's going to get killed by Appa, and that woman's out there doing her own thing again." The place Aisha arrived at was a rundown warehouse near the Brooklyn waterfront. Rusted steel doors, the smell of water, and one folding chair on a concrete floor. Rachel Park was standing there, smaller than expected, but the way she stood was different, the kind of person who makes the whole room theirs before saying a word. "Long time, Agent Williams." "Oh, wait, you're not an agent anymore, are you?" "Thanks to you. You should be grateful. If you'd stayed in the bureau, you'd never have had a life this interesting." Aisha didn't sit in the chair. She stood and faced Rachel straight on. "What do you want?" "Simple. Walk away from Kang Minjun? Do that, and I can give you your reputation back. I'll make sure the world finds out who actually committed that misconduct." Aisha's eyes narrowed. "You've waited 3 years for this. Missing this chance to get your name back would be a real shame." Silence. Outside the warehouse, the sound of waves. 3 years? Yeah, 3 years. But here was the strange thing. She didn't waver. Aisha made one slow pass around Rachel. An old habit from the bureau. Rachel's left hand. The inside of her jacket, where her eyes moved. And a bag sitting alone in the corner of the warehouse. That bag. I need to know what's in that bag. Show me proof. Proof that you can actually give me my reputation back. After we have a deal? Before. That's how negotiation works, isn't it? Rachel's eyes tightened for just a second. Then she gave one of her men a short nod. The man opened the bag. A thick stack of files. A USB drive sitting on top. Aisha's eyes stopped on the USB. She tried not to smile. The corner of her mouth moved anyway, just barely. That's not evidence. That's Rachel's own dirt. There's something else on that drive. Her old instructor's voice came back from her training days when a suspect pulls out evidence themselves. There are only 2 reasons. They completely trust you, or they're desperate. Rachel's fingertips were trembling. Aisha moved in the next instant. She shoved the chair aside and stepped forward. One of Rachel's men stepped in her way. Aisha twisted his arm to the side and dropped low, driving toward the bag. The room erupted, shouting, "Footsteps!" But Aisha's hand was already around the USB drive. Rachel's voice cut through. "Grab her!" Then the warehouse door opened. From the other side, Minjun, Jaehyuk and 3 more men standing with him. Aisha and Minjun locked eyes. She held up the USB. He saw it. The color drained from Rachel's face for the first time. "I'm the one who made myself the queen." Not him. Rachel's crew backed down one by one in front of Minjun's men. Rachel didn't run. Her pride wouldn't allow it. "What good is that USB to you?" "I pass it to a former colleague at the bureau. And it's plenty useful. Every name of every inside man you planted 3 years ago, it's all on there. Had to be, since you were keeping it this close." Rachel bit her lip. "I'll get my reputation back myself. I'm not taking it as a gift from you." Minjun signaled Jaehyuk. Rachel's crew began to be taken down one by one. Rachel looked at Aisha one last time. Her eyes held rage and something close to disbelief, tangled together. Aisha held that gaze without flinching. Didn't look away. From outside the warehouse, the sound of the water came back quieter than before, but deeper. After leaving the warehouse, Minjun walked beside Aisha along the waterfront. The night air off the pier was cold. Aisha's hair blew across her face. "No call. I told Jisu." "That's not a call." Aisha looked sideways at him. His jaw had a slight set to it. "Were you worried about me?" Checking on an asset who went into a dangerous situation is standard protocol. An asset. 2 minutes ago, you said I wasn't a bargaining chip, and now I'm an asset? Minjun stopped walking. Aisha stopped too. The wind off the pier moved between them. Partner. 1 word. Short, solid, and impossible to take back. Aisha looked ahead. New York's night was scattering light across the water. She didn't answer. That was her answer. 1 USB drive changed New York overnight. Aisha handed the files to Marcus, her old contact at the bureau. 2 days after the warehouse, Marcus flew to D.C. 3 days after that, a federal warrant was issued. Rachel Park, organized crime, bribery of a public official, obstruction of justice. 14 charges in total. And inside those 14, one more name. Former FBI agent Donald Chase, the exact man who had pinned a fabricated misconduct charge on Aisha 3 years ago. Aisha watched the news report alone in the penthouse kitchen, both hands around her coffee mug. She didn't cry. Didn't look like she was going to. She just looked at the screen for a long time. 3 years. That was a long time. Rachel's fall spread like dominoes, fast and relentless. But in the middle of it all, one name surfaced that no one had been expecting. Jaehyuk. Inside the USB files was a list of the moles Rachel had embedded within Minjun's organization. Jaehyuk's name was on it. 3 years back, Minjun received the file that evening. Alone in his office, he sat for a long time, holding a single sheet of paper, looking out the window. Jisu knocked and came in. Oppa. Did you know? I didn't know. Jisu pressed her lips together. She knew exactly how much weight those 3 words carried. Kang Minjun saying he didn't know, that was something you could count on one hand. Across his whole life, Jaehyuk didn't run. Before Minjun could call for him, Jaehyuk opened the office door himself and walked in. The 2 men faced each other for a long time. No words. I have a family. Rachel got to them. 3 years ago, Minjun said nothing. I should have told you, boss. I knew I should have. I just couldn't. Minjun stood slowly, walked toward him. Jaehyuk didn't look away. His was the face of a man who had already made his peace with whatever was coming. Minjun put his hand on Jaehyuk's shoulder. Where's your family now? Boss? Move them somewhere safe, before the end of today. Jaehyuk's eyes broke. For the first time in all the years anyone had known him, that solid, stone-still face broke. Minjun didn't say anything more. He turned and walked back to the window. Jaehyuk bowed his head, and kept it bowed for a long time. Late that night, Aisha knocked on Minjun's office door. He hadn't turned the lights off. A single sheet of paper sat on his desk. I heard about Jaehyuk. So, I suspected him first. I heard him on a phone call in the hallway. I just didn't say anything. I wasn't sure enough. Minjun looked at her. I should have told you. I'm sorry. Minjun was quiet for a moment. Then he got up from his chair. You said it yourself. Suspicion without evidence gets people killed. How did you... I heard you saying it to yourself. The first night. Aisha's eyes went wide. Minjun's mouth moved up, then down, in that quick, almost invisible way. Aisha caught it again. Same as before. He actually knows how to smile. The morning Rachel was taken into custody, the sun came out over New York. First clear day in a while. A story that had started in the rain was turning its page in the light. Aisha stood on the penthouse terrace, coffee in hand, watching Manhattan wake up. Minjun came and stood beside her, leaned against the railing without a word. Neither of them spoke for a while. New York's morning moved between them. What happens now? For me, your call. I need options before I can choose. Minjun glanced at her for a moment. Stay, or go. That's it? Stay, you're a partner. Go, you have safe passage. Aisha took a sip of her coffee. Cedarwood drifted past on the breeze. Partners are equals. I don't take orders. Understood. And you don't put me in dangerous situations without telling me first. You have a lot of conditions. It's a negotiation. Minjun looked straight ahead and said very quietly, Deal. Aisha laughed. A real laugh, a big one. The first real laugh she'd had since arriving in New York. That evening, the penthouse kitchen turned into a scene. Jisu came out holding a bottle of champagne. The crew had no idea what was happening, but they took the glasses she handed out. We're toasting to Rachel Park's arrest. And to our new partner. Drinks up, everyone. The crew looked at each other. Minjun raised his glass. They all raised theirs at once. Aisha moved to stand next to Jisu. You told me you were the most dangerous person in this place. Still true? Appa's just cold. I'm actually dangerous. I believe you. Good instincts. We're going to get along great. Jisu filled Aisha's glass to the brim. Across the room, Minjun was watching, still holding his glass, just for a moment. Jaehyuk leaned in quietly beside him. Boss, if those two become close friends, doesn't that make things harder for the rest of us? I know. Jaehyuk looked up at the ceiling, the face of a man who had accepted his fate.
A woman walked in from the rain with nothing but her own name to reclaim, in a world that was foreign to her cold and built on rules she hadn't written. The one thing she never let go of was herself. And it turned out that was enough. Two worlds collided, found each other's cracks, and filled them in. That's the quiet thing this story was always trying to say. Everyone, at some point, gets pushed into a world they didn't choose. And the colder and more foreign that world feels, the more certain we can be. Knowing yourself, really knowing yourself, is the hardest and most unbreakable thing you can carry. Aisha showed us that with everything she had, being protected and being dependent are not the same word. Being strong and being alone are not the same word either. A true partner isn't someone who takes your weight away. It's someone who stands right beside you and holds their own, isn't it? And as for the injustice we carry, time doesn't heal it on its own. It only gets resolved by those who decide to go out and face it themselves. This story is a work of fiction.